seems that there's just no originality in Hollywood these days. Everything's a remake, reboot, or sequel. Why is this? How come Hollywood has its heart so set on building franchises and just remaking and rehashing old material? I'm Hunter Steed. This is Watchdog Reviews. So let's talk about movies.
With the release of Power Rangers this weekend, it has become very apparent that pretty much every studio is grasping for their own franchise. With the recent success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this makes a lot of sense, but we're going to go a little deeper here and try to see what exactly is going on and why originality actually even matters. A lot of people might be watching this going, well, what does it really matter that we watch movies? Are they even important? Well, the average US citizen spends 4 hours every day on TV. So yeah, it kind of matters. We spend a lot of our time with media, and we get a lot of exposure from it, and that has influence on us. Not that it, radically changes the way we think, but TV and movies are a method of persuasion, and persuasion by definition is a conscious attempt by one individual or group to change the attitudes, beliefs, or behavior of another individual or group of individuals through the transmission of some message. I don't know of a better way that messages are transmitted than through the media, in particular movies and television. So yeah, I'd say this does kind of matter for pretty much everybody. How do they affect how we see things, you might ask? Well, think about advertising. Sure, you might not see an ad for a Lexus and, go out and buy a Lexus car, but the fact of the matter is you think about that car a lot differently because of the way advertising is put together. Advertising, as it is designed to make you see an item in a certain way. Movies and TV are no different. Sure, they might not be selling you a Lexus car, but they are selling you a message. They're selling you an idea. Every movie at its heart has something it's trying to say. Even some of the silliest or seemingly weirdest movies have an inherent message that they are trying to convey to an audience. And this is what is important about this, to understand that movies do matter. They tell us things and they make us think certain things. So, do we want to spend our time fixated on pure garbage, or do we want to spend our time with actual intellectually stimulating good material? Over the past decade and a half, we have seen a drastic increase in franchises and remakes and sequels and other sorts of things, and a drastic decrease in mainstream original content. I went through and I did a lot of research on this, and I looked up a lot of the various information. First of all, this chart here, it shows that the original content from 1990 to 2016 has changed dramatically. We went from being majority original content just in a few years, entirely shifting. The year 2001 was the real drastic shift where everything flip-flopped and we got more non-original material than we did original, and that's maintained all the way through to the current year. The only exception with this is in 2006 there were more original films than non-original. There are only 18 films that are technically original screenplays that managed to be in the top 5 for each of the years from 2000 to 2016. What Women Want, Gladiator, Castaway, Monsters, Inc., My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Bruce Almighty, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Night at the Museum, WALL-E, Hancock, Up, Avatar, Frozen, The Lego Movie, Inside Out, and The Secret Life of Pets. Now, if you had noticed, 7 of these movies are Pixar films. That's right, Pixar. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Pixar, once upon a time, was the #1 producer of original content, not only for kids but for adults as well. Pixar was amazing. They had hits such as Toy Story, Bug's Life, WALL-E, The Incredibles, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, which are all great films, not just as animated kids movies, but as movies in general. And unfortunately, that trend has not continued. As we've seen, they have tried to do franchises in Cars 2 and now Cars 3 coming out this year, as well as Finding Dory, Monsters University, and coming soon, The Incredibles 2 and Toy Story 4. That's right, 4. So, suffice it to say, Pixar can now be counted among the studios that have fallen into peer pressure to conform to franchise their material. One of the biggest things I've noticed that has really kind of bothered me is the difference in what critics say they want versus what critics demonstrate that they want. We hear a lot from people of this franchise fatigue, or people getting kind of sick of superhero movies or these sequels all the time, and yet that's really not what critics are demonstrating they believe. Consistently, when a film from a franchise that is well known comes out, critics have been very receptive to that. And on the flip side, there are plenty of original movies that come out every year that are really negatively talked about by critics. These films are actually pretty good, a lot of them, and yet critics tend to rip them to pieces, and yet all these franchises that they praise demonstrate the exact same problems. For instance, you take the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has gained quite a bit of critical praise. Recent films such as Doctor Strange, Captain America Civil War, both received 90% approval ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. In contrast, other films that came out the same year that were really good didn't receive nearly as much. The Finest Hours received a 63%. Midnight Special received an 83%. Pretty good, but still not the 90% that Doctor Strange and Captain America did. As well as films that were negatively received by critics, even though they really were undeserving, such as 13 Hours, which received a 50%, and The Accountant, which received a 51%, and Passengers, which received a staggering 31%. None of these films are bad films. Yes, they have their flaws and they're not perfect, but the flaws that exist in these movies are not any worse than the flaws that exist in your typical Marvel Cinematic Universe film. Similarly, a movie that received far too much praise from critics was Jurassic World. The movie has a 71% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The movie is not good, and yet other films get equal, if not lower, ratings. One movie in particular that has the exact same approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, Interstellar. These movies are not even in the same category. Interstellar is far and beyond a much, much better film, not only in the way it's made, but even in the story. Yes, it has plot holes, but guess what? It's not the stinking crap pile that is Jurassic World. Many, many, many other films have received staggeringly low approval ratings from Rotten Tomatoes, and yet other films that are far worse have received better reviews. Other films that really don't demonstrate particular excellence, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Rogue One, and Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, these films aren't bad, they're enjoyable movies, but do they deserve a 93%, an 85%, and a 75%? I'm not so sure. I definitely don't think that a film like Passengers, that really delivered some thought-provoking commentary and delivered some really great performances, deserved a 31%. Hollywood is a business and they want to make money, so they're not going to invest in things that aren't going to make them money. There came a switch very early on, back in the early 2000s, where we stopped emphasizing original movies. So let's look at some of the most successful franchises of all time. At number 5, the Lord of the Rings films, which contain 6 films, the 3 Lord of the Rings and the 3 Hobbit films, grossed over $5 billion worldwide. Number 4 is the James Bond movies, with a total of 25 films, have grossed over $6 billion. Number 3, Star Wars, with now 8 films, has grossed over $7 billion. Number 2, the Harry Potter films, with now 9 movies, has grossed $8 billion. And finally, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with its 14 movies, has grossed $10,891,403,754. 8 out of the top 10 highest grossing movie franchises of all time are still making movies today. In contrast, let's look at the most successful original movies of all time. At number 5, Finding Nemo, with $936 million worldwide. Number 4 is Utopia, just over $1 billion. Number 3 is Frozen, with $1.2 billion. Titanic at number 2, with $2.1 billion. And Avatar at number 1, with $2.7 billion worldwide. Now, when looking at all the top 10 most successful original movies of all time, 4 out of these top 10 went on to spawn franchises of their own. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that all original movies are better than all non-original movies. There's plenty of original movies that are really bad. And there's plenty of non-original movies that are really good. But my point is, original films deserve a chance. We don't need to have the same stories rehashed and the same characters redone. We want new things. It's better to challenge the way we think, to change the way we see things. Because, after all, it's not about quantity, it's all about quality.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video. This has been Watchdog Reviews. I'm Hunter Steed, and if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe so you can join the watch.